Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Send it, Ethan.
Real quick. The Legion, once upon a time, was basically hardened criminals in uniform.
And a
And
lot of it still is.
I mean, these guys sent a sniper to execute President de Gaulle because their
Yeah.
home base of Algeria was being given away. I mean, these guys take their shit very seriously. And they
And that's good
provided,
info, Ethan. A lot
yeah,
of people don't know that.
no, man, it's one of those Day of the Jackal, I think, is loosely based on it. Like they were gonna,
Yeah.
and they were like battling Algerian insurgents or something, and then they were gonna give it away or give them their liberation, and the Legion is like,
Yeah.
you're gone. And actually, it's one of the crazier moments. But that's how rugged and tough some of these guys are. Like they're their own. They serve France, but are like their own like country within the military, right?
Yeah. When you join the French Foreign Legion, you don't swear allegiance to France. You swear allegiance to the Legion.
Yeah. I mean, the stories I got once upon a time were that they were so strict that they would like bury guys up to their neck and use them as like soccer goalposts for a couple of days in the desert and things like that. Like basically torture. Torture.
Yeah, the punishment in the late 1800s, because it's about a 200-year-old institution, but in the late 1800s in Algeria, the stories were pretty wild. The
Yeah.
jails out there, being buried in the sand for days. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah. And you and I had talked prior. My old boss, John Milius at Warner Brothers, had a Legionnaire script about the French occupation of Mexico, somewhere around like the U.S. Civil War. And those
Cameroon.
guys, yes. Is
Yeah.
that now you know the Legion's history real well? Is that because they still celebrate it and make sure you know it, or are you just well read?
Oh, they beat it India. Yeah, they beat it. It's the tradition is the Legion. And
Yeah.
you come in there and you're indoctrinated in it. Cameroon is, other than Christmas, Noel, it is the biggest holiday, which is ironic because Cameroon, almost all the Legionnaires ended up dying. It was kind of like their Alamo.
Yeah.
And they still carry around the severed wooden hand of the commander, the
Yeah.
captain. Yeah.
No, Milius said that script was almost 100% accurate, and it was no joke. Like reading this, I mean, like the Legion's reputation in those days was they're going to fight to the death. Like they're the Gurkhas of Europe.
Yeah.
Like they're going to take you apart and have a good time doing it. Almost like the mentality Milius had about it. And of course, he's a Hollywood director, but well rooted in historical roots and knowledge. He was like, the fabric of the Legion was one where they signed up basically knowing or assuming at some point in service they would be killed.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's softened a bit. I mean, I don't know if softened is the right word, but I'm not even, you're the Legionnaire. I'm not sure how to describe it, but for the first time, it seems like in recent decades, they've kind of allowed people in to sort of know more about it.
Yeah.
It was very,
Yeah.
But you actually, after working with the SEAL teams, colorful history that was, you banged on the door at like the Legion base in Paris, as one does.
Yeah.
You know, Tuesday afternoon or something, said, "Hey, I'm joining up." And and so they basically said, "All right, get in here. Let's see what you're made of," and then take it from there.
Yeah, it's an interesting, very unique process because there's nothing like it. There's no interview. There's no application. You show up with your fucking bag and knock on this ironwood medieval castle looking door on the east outskirts of Paris. And a Legionnaire with a gun and a green beret. Mine happened to be from Mexico. And he goes, let me see your passport. And I didn't see my passport from that moment for 2.5 years. So just to kind of give you an example, and going in, first thing is pull-ups. And I was by myself. It was raining on a Sunday night, and it was pull-ups, then immediately an IQ test. Some guy comes in yelling at me with a Russian accent, speaking French. You're like, man, I am out here, man. What am I doing?
Yeah.
But that's where my path started.
It's unreal. And they're very diversified, not just in terms of culture, but what their duties are, because the European Space Agency is based in South America. And isn't the Legion assigned to protect it?
It is. There's a yes, the International Space Station down in French Guyane Francais,
Mm.
is down there, and the Troisième Ray is the third foreign regiment down stationed permanently down there. There's also rotating regiments that go down there to combat illegal gold mining, like I had done down in South America for 4 months in deep jungle operations. But the regiment that's there permanently, that's their bread and butter, is guarding that space facility. It's quite interesting because France uses the Foreign Legion for internal patrols for anti-terrorism purposes, also places of worship. Monuments, things like that, because France does have some serious issues with terrorist threats, and they had a big explosion there in 2016 down in Nice. And French Foreign Legion there also for the Olympics, who was doing a lot of the security. French Foreign Legion, things like that. Not to mention all the external operations that France is used for with NATO, with down in Africa. 26 countries in Africa speak French. So you can imagine the French Foreign Legion has a pretty strong hold down there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're so well respected. Their reputation is so wired up. And, it's funny because they are so rugged. Like breakfast, I heard, was like a piece of bread and cup of coffee. And then it's like, okay, get after it.
Man, it forever. Like, I thought it was just a boot camp thing, but it is hard bread, soldier bread, and maybe they'll give you a little butter if they're feeling froggy, but black coffee. And that was how they got down. And being American, obviously, I'm like, where's the protein? Maybe I missed the food station somewhere. And it was, nope. And that's just, you're immediately running rain, snow, running 5 to 12 to 13 miles a day on that. And, your body gets used to it. You definitely drop some weight. But the French Foreign Legion is the redheaded stepchild of the French military. They're the least funded. The allocation for the food is less. The buildings are a little bit more tough. It's rustique, as they would say in French.
Yeah, that's putting it politely, right? So those stories were that, like, a lot of, like, after World War I and even World War II, the ranks would swell up a bit, sometimes because some unsavory types were avoiding maybe war crimes trials back home. And a lot of those guys ended up fighting like the Viet Minh in Vietnam. So talk about a colorful conflict. Like, these are, like, some of these guys come from all over the world, fighters, prisoners, convicts, war criminals, and then they're dropped in, places like on like the Laotian border and shit, fighting like Ho Chi Minh's early, commando. And it's just like, but it was, the reputation was like blasted out of these conflicts that were so colorful and unique that you can't help but be like awestruck by this unit's history. And I don't know if it's like that now. I mean, they took you, but they had to have some sense that this guy, I can tell by talking to you, this guy has an idea what's going to go down. This is a good candidate. But do they still take everyone? Do they still, like, could you open up like Terminal Island and get a bunch of cadets, or how does it go? How strict are they?
They're 1 out of 15 who, like I said, who knock on the door get selected. So that's just to give you a rough number. Yeah. Now, what's going to help? They want either really young guys who they can coach up and indoctrinate in and get under their thumb, or older guys who have experience. That's generally, and they might filter in some guys in the middle there, but that's, I would say 50 to 60, maybe 70% of guys have prior military experience in their home countries.
Now, you're a self-described artist with the hardware. Yeah. With a gun in your hand, you're like a modern day Picasso.
A savant with that AR.
Yeah. You've got your skill set, and your reputation hangs on it. But did you overall enjoy your time in the Legion? Was it good for you? No.
Was it good for me? Yes. Yeah. Did I enjoy it? No, absolutely not. Was there cool moments? Absolutely. Was it
Mhm.
a absolutely necessary piece of my story to self-actualize? Yes. I
Yeah.
needed that time to mature. I needed that time to get clear, to sit in silence and self-reflection for years, and to really strip it down. I mean, you're washing your clothes in the sink, right?
Yeah.
You're washing you're stripped down and alone and cold and not understanding why the fuck you're getting yelled at and shit like that. And I needed that. I needed that for my soul. And so looking back, I'm really glad I did it. It opened up my international perspective also. Just meeting, I have friends from Greece, Ukraine, Romania, Hungary,
Mhm.
Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, everywhere you could possibly meet, every country in South America, many in Africa. So that was fascinating in the sense that being the only American there, really, one
Right.
of them
Right.
that was in my unit was eye opening because you see people who really grow up tough, man. They
Yeah.
grew up poor, grew up tough, and that bleeds into you because you really realize what's important,
No, there's a
what you
big
need.
diff. Yeah, there's a huge difference between like growing up California poor and then growing up like in the
Yeah,
streets of
yeah,
like
yeah. Ukraine, right?
yeah.
On the eastern Ukraine, poor is a different kind of poor than. Yeah, I grew up with a single mom in Southern California.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So, but you know what? What's interesting is once you put on that Legion flag, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
Nobody gives a shit about your socioeconomic status. Nobody gave a fuck I was a SEAL, right? I mean, it was kind of cool. Some guys liked it and they asked questions, but nobody really gives a fuck. They're like, what can you do now? That's all that matters. What can you do now? And are you a good teammate?
And that
Can I trust you?
yeah, and that's what I love about it is that second chance of the past does good or bad. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's
Yeah.
today
Good
forward.
or
And I
bad.
love that aspect of it. It's like, all right, so you were a cannibal in the streets of Prague as a poor kid. Now
Yeah.
you're you know,
Yeah.
now you're going to be a part of something special. And it does have some mysticism around it, even
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
and you yourself are like exactly that kind of guy. Like you've got a book coming out,
Mm.
and I'm sure people cannot wait for it because the stories you've lived are like almost if I hadn't talked to you and met you, people at Warner Brothers would question if the guy was created. Like if we didn't have Cavanaugh, we would have to
Yeah.
build him,
Yeah.
you know. But you've lived this stuff and now you're in the Legion. Now give me two or three other real interesting Legionnaire types who you were like really curious about. Like, wow, this
Yeah.
guy, who are some of these guys that were in your platoon or your regiment that you're like, damn, this dude.
Yeah. So a guy from Belarus, give you one guy. Blonde, real about my similar build,
Mhm.
and was an engineer in Belarus. Also was in their military and their like special police.
Right.
And you could tell immediately once you picked up a gun was good. He was promoted really quickly. Him and I got really close. I have some pictures of him and I in the jungle
Mhm.
together. It was cool because he was very similar to me in that we saw a lot of the bullshit for what it was. Right. We had both been to the puppet show and seen all the strings. So it wasn't like a lot of frazzling. We were about the same age. So that was cool to connect with the guy because we could barely speak the same language. Right. And we
Mhm.
had this catch all, but we totally understood each other. For years, for years we would sit and speak in this broken catch all language of French and became really close like that. Him teaching me some Russian, I'm teaching him some English. That cool dynamic, talking about our own lives and how we can communicate, and still being able to joke and stuff in a different language. That was cool. Also, an interesting on the other side of it, a guy that was very unassuming, a small Asian kid that was spoke with a better English American accent than me, and I was like, and he's from South Korea, and he taught himself English. He was in the South Korean military, was in intelligence, worked with a lot of special force units, Green Berets and stuff in South Korea, taught himself English just off video games, spoke perfect English, loved American culture. And him and I got really close because we were in the boot camp phase together and ended up deploying twice together. from the same regiment. He had moved to America, just to give you an example story. Finished at the South Korean military, wanted to go to America, wanted his American citizenship, went to America, moved to Kansas because he Googled, one of the least expensive places he could move and go to school. And somebody told him, don't go to Mississippi. So he went to Kansas, and he ran out of money after a couple of years and had been trying to get his green card to get in the military. He could not get his green card in time. By the time he was running out of money, and he was like, well, I still want to serve. I wanted to be a Special Force Green Beret. Can't do it. So then he joined the French Foreign Legion, and that's where him and I met.
You still keep in contact with these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible. Yeah. He, someone advised him right about, what was it? Mississippi, Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all the black hole of shit. So it's not, I'm glad he got some truth out of it.
Hi there, everybody. Voice actor Roger Craig Smith here to talk to you about NMOSD. It can paralyze you. It can blind you. It can even kill you in a matter of minutes, but we are very close to a cure. And with that cure could come a cure for cancer. So please go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation and donate today. Appreciate it.
Truth out of it. I think we should implement something like that as part of our new immigration policy. Like, if you want to join a special fighting force for 5 years or 4 years to get your citizenship, you can. And we should do something like that.
I think the American Legion, first of all, that would be a badass movie. And
sure.
Secondly, American Legion, take felons too.
Yeah.
I go take felons, take people that want, and make the selection fucking hard.
Right.
Make it very hard, make it very disciplined, make it very long. So there's tons of areas to trip up and get set back or not get what you want. And if you show that level of fortitude, man, then all right, work for the United States, push the strategic plan, right? In any different capacity. I think it'd be fascinating. I definitely think it would be a worthy goal.
Yeah, me too. I'm totally in favor of it. I mean, look what it's done for France. Look at this. Look at these guys. And I mean, the Legion has been in every critical they held the line at Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah.
These fucking dudes have been sent in with the full knowledge of knowing that section is gonna hold.
Well, and they all the way to Desert Storm. George Bush tried to buy the French Foreign Legion. I don't know if it is. It's actually a known thing. He had this conversation about how he could move that type of unit in the United States. I don't know how valid it was. Obviously, just talking, but every battle and why it works for France is there's no political pressure, right? It's not French citizens coming back in body bags, or very few. It's foreigners under a fake name.
Yeah,
and so it's very. Now I will say, they're very good about getting the bodies back, right? They're very good about getting next of kin and all that stuff and full ceremony. They don't short stroke it on the ceremony. All honors are rendered. But when I was in selection in Aubin, which is the headquarter regiment at Foreign Legion down in South France, outside of Marseille, I was tasked with weeding the cemetery of guys that were never sent back because they didn't have next of kin. This was powerful, man. I get the chills talking about it because I was walking around this graveyard and this place was pristine.
Yeah.
Not a weed, man. I had nothing to weed. It was pristine. And you just would have the guy's name. Who knows if it was his real name or not. The time he died, where he died. And man, this place was packed. Yeah. Powerful, really, really powerful moment, especially at the beginning. I've only been there for 3 weeks, haven't been selected for boot camp yet or given a contract. It was a very powerful moment. And in the Legion headquarters, there's a museum. And you walk down this pathway and it opens up in this back room. It's kind of like this kind of secret spot. And on both sides of the walls are every Legionnaire and officer that has died and a plaque. And it is all the way up like the Sistine Chapel, man. It is packed with tens of thousands of guys.
And don't they take care of their own? Like if you can retire in a Legion owned chateau.
Yeah, man, you got good information, Ethan. Yeah, they have a chateau winery.
Yeah.
The Legion produces their own wine. And if you serve your contract and you get out, doesn't matter. You ever want to come back as a senior citizen, you got nowhere else to go. You can go there and you'll have a place to stay, something to eat, and you just pick grapes and they make wine.
Yeah, see, I love that about him too. Norman Schwarzkopf said he was made an honorary Legionnaire. I don't doubt that that's true. I'm not sure what his qualifications were for his selection, but he said he got a card that had a number on it and said, and I don't know if this is fictionalized or just plain fucking awesome.
No, that's true. That number, that thing is true.
Really?
They're like, yeah, that goes right to the Legion headquarter number for him. And if anything pops off and he needed something, they would send people for him.
Now, that is the kind of thing that is like so impressive and so intriguing, because you start to imagine how that would look, right? First of all, what would happen? It's like a Rambo movie. What would happen where Schwarzkopf actually needed help? But let's just say
who would show up? Who they would send?
That's what I was thinking. Like
machine de guerre.
Yeah. We always had a joke about a good friend of mine who passed away, Sonny Landham, who played Billy the Indian in Predator. And we always said, this is the one guy on earth where if I was stuck in Vietnam or Cambodia or some shithole, this is the only guy I know would actually come get me out. And I feel like I feel like if Schwarzkopf called this number, that those kind of dudes would come get, like, you wonder, like, what does that look like? What does that strike team look like? What does that task force? It's just so fun to think about. But
the A-team, bro.
Yeah, for sure, man. But he was incredibly impressed, as he should have been during Desert Storm with those guys, because, there's a lot of impressive units, man, from the SEALs to the Gurkhas, SAS. You can look at their attributes, but the Legion has something about it that is just incredibly inspiring. Maybe it's because they are sort of, like you said, the redheaded stepchild, and they always have something to kind of like I said, you got to have some fucking nerve to want to assassinate your own president because you don't like the way his politics are going.
Yeah. They didn't. And on that, when that happened, that was the first parachute regiment, Premier Regiment Étranger. What they did is they were going to disband the Legion after that.
I heard.
But they were so needed for what France wanted. Think about this, that they're like, all right, we're not going to disband you, but we're going to take down that parachute regiment. They left the second parachute regiment, and they go, but you're going to Corsica Island, which is where Napoleon was born.
Exactly.
Right? They put them on Corsica, and they're still there to this day, that parachute regiment. They call it the Alcatraz.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that fucking incredible? Now, your time in the Legion, you kind of found a higher purpose, is how I would define it. You realize that your experiences could play into the lives of other people around you and help them out.
Yeah.
But the Legion wasn't big on your self-help or your sort of your outreach program, right?
They were fine with it until I blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were fine with it until they would actually like, yeah, I saw your video. It was awesome, until it was starting to get millions of views. Then they were like, all right, this has a little bit more. We don't know what he's going to say. Mm-hmm. So, but I have only ever spoken highly of the Foreign Legion. I'm proud of the Legion. I think they serve a great purpose.
Yeah.
And they stand for something really cool, which is they're like the last bastion of like man shit. There's no women allowed, right? It is the last bastion of like politically incorrect. And it works, and it should never change that part of it. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best approach all the time, but it works for that unit in that specific spot. And so I understand why they didn't want, but I also had a different purpose, because I had a lot of American soldiers that were hitting me up wanting a second chance, and also I told them about, me, and I had suicidal moments in my life, getting low points and getting out of that. And they were like, look, man, your videos stopped me from killing myself. And I was getting hundreds of those, a lot, still do. And so I was like, look, sometimes it's bigger than me and some fucking rule. So I decided to push forward.
Man, it's absolutely true. And you overcame that, and just think of what would not have been accomplished had you decided to pull the trigger. I mean, what's interesting about, I remember being at NBC Universal, and we were looking for a consultant with like really, really solid military experience and tactical knowledge. And I saw a video happen to pop up on my timeline, and you were talking about former SEAL, now with the French Foreign Legion, who had embraced the art of like cleaning up shit in a latrine.
Yeah.
And your philosophy is like, it's all good. You got to hit rock bottom to push yourself off. And your approach to that, I was like, this dude is fucking mystifying. Like, look at this guy. This guy is like the Jesus of military veterans. I mean, how do you embrace? And you were like cleaning it up with like a dust pan. Like they didn't
cleaning piss up with a dustpan, man.
Yeah. I mean, someone told me once upon a time the Legion has a day where the officers will replace the enlisted men and clean their bunks or something or do something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's real. Is it?
Oh, it is. Cameroon. Yeah.
Oh, that's the Cameroon celebration. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like the way you described it is like, this is where I'm at. Yeah. And there's nowhere to go but up. But man, what a meteoric rise. I mean, props to you to overcome and show people how it's done. Like the instrumental thing about you is it's like a blueprint. Like you don't have to be mediocre. You don't have to be, under someone's jackboot. You can amount to great things. And that's what I love about your messaging. And I remember seeing this, we were watching it going, and you were talking about, and I had a dustpan to pick up all the piss. And I was like, this is our guy right here. This is our guy. Yeah. And the executives are like, but I don't know, man, this guy looks like he is right out of Folsom. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing, right? like this guy's got experience, and that's what we need. And that's what we should pay for, is the experience, but I love your story, man. I love the way you overcome. I mean, the Navy SEAL aspect, and you were on like a Protect Obama, unit at one point there. That's all fascinating. But the Legionnaire stuff to me is like, that's behind like the door of like the military equivalent of like Wonka's chocolate factory of like, what the fuck goes on in there? And here you are, you lived it. And you would think they would, well, they don't have like the operational budget to have a mass amount of numbers. There's only like 8,500 Legionnaires, right?
7,000, 8,000 around there.
Yeah, so they don't need the PR outreach that some of the other armed forces groups want to attract people. I was thinking like maybe they put like a guy with you and be like, hey, here's what we don't want you to mention in the video. But they're like, fuck it. No, we don't want all these guys banging on the door that can't cut it anyway, probably. Yeah. And
they increased their recruiting numbers. They got a lot of guys over there, not because of me. Well, maybe just by seeing my story and providing some awareness. So I know their caliber increased. But also what was funny is like my image, the commander, the colonel at our base used me as their to take professional pictures for the Legion pamphlet, which is funny. They did. He's like, hey, we want that American to take pictures for this thing. So I had to do everything in my uniform, which I thought was funny. But it is absolutely unwavering in their traditional approach, which is what was refreshing about the Legion and also very challenging, right? They're an ancient institution, and so they move like that. Big, they're not quick to adjust, and they're not going to, and I don't think they have to. What they're doing is working, and yes, the mystery was scary, right? There was a lot of fear knocking on that door. You're standing in front of that thing. It's very, very weird. It's a weird moment in life. And so the guys you get in there who actually get selected are a very unique bunch. You got guys taking a boat to a plane to a bus to a train, right? All across from some village in South America, right? Or Mongolia or all these different places. It's a very unique undertaking. And, and you got that carrot of French citizenship for the guys that want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you miss it at all?
No.
Nah.
Not a day, man. No, I love my autonomy, man. I went there. I wanted to do, and operate and do what I needed to do. But, I'm happy to have my autonomy. Right, man, I'm 40 years old, 39 years old now. Right. It's you don't want to be marching to Chow singing, at 40 if I can avoid it.
Well, see, you actually paint a better picture of it for me. I figure you'd be deep in the jungle, like hunting monkeys for dinner and shit.
Oh, we did that too. Don't get it wrong. I ate crocodiles and monkeys and all that, man. We did. And so there's that. And there's also, the regiment side, which is very formal, very tough, very thumb on, very prison-like. And so that prison-like environment, and also that Eastern Bloc culture gets pushed down, which any movie or anything I would ever push is the ambiance.
Right.
The ambiance is not jovial.
Mhm.
It is not a jovial. They poke this bear, they poke you with a stick, and then they let you go and they let you deploy.
Yeah.
That's like a gift. When you can get to Africa or the middle of the jungle, you're like, thank God, right? Because
Right.
they poke you with a stick all the rest of the time.
Right. And you're a big guy by Legion standards. You're a brick house. So
Yeah.
they probably looked at you because they like to be light and fast, those guys, and you are pretty quick, right? But
yeah, I can run, but yeah, I mean, I'm 220 pounds, and that was probably about 210 in the Legion, and I was still bigger, right? And so the running was always, it was in the SEAL teams too, my biggest challenge, and there's a lot of it. The philosophy of American military is slow and high security, and in the Foreign Legion, it's light and cover distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Buddy, incredible. I know you're pressed for time, so I'm going to let you go. One more thing, though, before I do. The Legion gave you a name, and it was Trent Clayson, right?
Trent Clayson.
You see, you got a good name. Imagine if they gave you like a name you didn't want any part of.
Oh, yeah, man. My South Korean buddy, he got the name Rim Moon. He was like, motherfucker. He was like, these assholes.
And there's no change in it, right? You can't lobby for a change up.
No, they ain't. They don't. They're like, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Rim. Don't waste my time. You're done here. You're done here. You're done here. Oh, buddy, this has been a real privilege, man. Where can people find what you're doing and what you're up to? You've got a lot of real important stuff out there for people to track and build around.
Yeah. Everybody can always get me on my website, TaylorCavanaugh.com, on my Instagram, TCAV official, which you can hit me on DM direct. I don't outsource anything. Talk to me direct. And on my YouTube, TCAV TV.
Yeah. Impressive to say the least, and inspiring. There's a lot of people on the brink that could bounce back and become something special by seeing what you're up to. You have lived it. Oh, bro, it's absolutely super hyper impressive. I mean, how many times have you been locked up? I used you as an example the other day in a Thai boxing club. I said, this is why you don't punch someone in public.
Yeah,
this guy.
One punch, man. It was really, stupid, young and dumb, and right. It changed the trajectory of my life. And I had been locked up multiple times, just being immature and making poor decisions. And I had to overcome a lot. I made life a lot more challenging than it had to be by, like most of us, being self-sabotaging my own path, by fabricating obstacles that when we really get aligned, and this is always my message is empowerment, man, be better for yourself and your family. Listen to that authentic voice in your head. Work better, be better, live better, and things start to fall into place.
Great place to leave it, man. Preach it, bro. Nice work. We're proud of you.
Hey, thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it. Later on, everybody.
See you.
NMOSD is a disease that can blind you, paralyze you, or kill you. But the good news is doctors seem to think they're very close to a cure. They also seem to think that a cure for NMOSD will be a cure for cancer. So that's a 2-for-1 that I can't ignore. And if you're like me, you would donate today to the Guthy Jackson Foundation. My name is Steve Surgic, and I approve this message.